Let's talk about cloud computing. There's this incredibly powerful layer in the cloud that has totally changed the game for building software. It's called Platform as a Service, or PaaS for short. And in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly what it is and why you should care. So, to really get what PaaS is all about, you first have to understand the problem it was designed to solve. I like to call it the builder's bottleneck. This idea that creating modern software involves so much more than just, writing the code. We all know it, right? Building a killer application is tough. But what if the hardest part, the part that costs the most time, the most money, the most headaches, wasn't the code itself? Think of it like an iceberg. The part you see above the water, that's your code, the actual application. But underneath the surface, there's this massive, hidden workload. You're talking about setting up servers, configuring databases, managing operating systems, handling security, planning for scale. All of it is absolutely essential, but man, is it a distraction from what you're really trying to do? Build an amazing product. So how do we fix this bottleneck? A really great way to wrap your head around the solution is with an analogy. Let's say you want to build some beautiful custom furniture. The big question is, do you want to spend months building the workshop itself, or do you just want to get straight to building the furniture? And this is exactly where the different cloud service models come in. On one end of the spectrum, you have infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. Think of that as renting an empty plot of land. You get the space, but you have to build absolutely everything yourself. On the complete opposite end, you have software as a service, or SaaS. That's like walking into a store and buying a finished table. You don't build a thing, you just use the final product. PaaS is that perfect sweet spot right in the middle. It's like renting a fully equipped workshop. All the power tools, the workbenches, the lighting, it's all set up and ready to go. You just show up with your blueprints, your application, and your data, and you get right to work. And that brings us to the more formal definition. A PaaS provider gives you a whole platform to develop, run, and manage your apps, without you ever having to worry about building or maintaining all that complex infrastructure underneath. It takes care of the servers, the networking, the storage, the databases, the whole shebang. This frees up developers to focus on the one thing that actually creates value, their code. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's dive into a few use cases to see how businesses are using PaaS to get a serious competitive edge. All right, first up, saving a ton of money. A huge driver for PaaS is dealing with old, clunky, expensive legacy applications. You know, those systems that are a pain to maintain but are so critical to the business that you can't just switch them off. They just sit there, draining the budget. And we're not talking about small savings here. This is huge. According to research from Oracle, moving those old applications over to a modern PaaS environment can cut operational costs by 50 to 90%. That's a massive number. You do that by consolidating hardware and just making everything easier to manage, which frees up a ton of cash that you can then pour back into innovation. But it's not just about the cost savings. PaaS is like a superpower for your business. It makes you way more agile, letting you launch new projects and push updates faster. It helps you modernize, getting all your different apps onto a single, up-to-date tech stack. And, maybe most importantly, it sparks innovation by helping you get ideas from a whiteboard to the market quicker than ever before. But it can't all be good news, right? This speed, this convenience, it comes with some pretty serious trade-offs. It's really important to understand the other side of this coin, the hidden costs and risks that come with using someone else's platform. There are three main downsides to keep in mind. First, pretty obviously, you're giving up some control over the nitty-gritty details of the infrastructure. Second, and this is a big one, is the risk of vendor lock-in. It can become incredibly difficult and expensive to move your app from one PaaS provider to another. And finally, while it can be cheap to get started, those costs can really sneak up on you and grow exponentially as your application gets bigger. Now, that danger of vendor lock-in, it is not just a theoretical problem. This quote from way back in 2007 points to a cautionary tale that the industry learned the hard way, right from the very beginning. So let me tell you the story of Zimke. This was it, the world's first ever public PaaS. It launched in 2006 and developers were, as you can imagine, super excited. But just 1 year later, the service was shut down. Just poof, gone. Permanently. Every single person who had built their application on that platform was just left high and dry. The very first PaaS gave the industry its very first and very harsh lesson about the reality of vendor lock-in. Now, this failure was actually a huge learning moment. It pushed the whole industry toward more open standards and technologies, which thankfully modern platforms use to give us all a lot more freedom. So all of this leads us to the central conflict, the fundamental choice at the heart of the PaaS decision. It really is a strategic tug of war between two competing priorities, control versus speed. Let's break it down. When you choose IaaS, you get total control. The pros are obvious: full flexibility, no one can lock you in. The cons, it's slower and a lot more complex to build everything from scratch. Now, when you choose PaaS, you get maximum speed. Your team can develop way faster and focus only on the code. But that trade-off, of course, is less control and that very real risk of vendor lock-in. So, ultimately, going with PaaS is a major business decision. It's a conscious choice. You are deciding to trade a degree of control over your environment for a massive, massive advantage in speed and focus. And that leaves us with one final thought. In today's relentless race to innovate and build the next big thing, maybe the most important question isn't just about what new technologies you should adopt. Maybe the real question is, to get where you want to go faster, what are you willing to let go of?